I'm Marky Billson, coming to you on a Sunday night after the Tennessee Volunteers defeat UAB 32-7. I would say it was the Volunteers' best victory of the season. Maybe it was. UAB came in 6-1, and although a lot of people had talked about the weakness of the Conference USA schedule and such, the fact of the matter is Tennessee had not beaten a team with a winning record all season long. But before we get to a little rundown of that victory, and not everything was great in the game, I do want to pose this question. What with Florida State firing Willie Taggart today, there is now some talk that Mark Stoops might become the next coach at Florida State. Very interesting. But the thing about that Kentucky coach, Mark Stoops, is that he's 4-4 this year. Lose to Tennessee, he's 4-5, probably going on 5-7, 6-6. It's probably not going to be enough for the Seminoles to want to come and hire him. Now, a P.J. Fleck, someone like that, possibly. On the other hand, for Tennessee, winning the game is probably a necessity to make a bowl game in their own right. Then Tennessee would be 5-5, and you got to figure would go at least 500 against the likes of Missouri and Vanderbilt, and then, yeah, that Who Cares Bowl could be had by Tennessee. The thing is, the Who Cares Bowl is something that the Vols have not been able to do the last 2 years, so it's another small step in the right direction. We'll give you that. But the one question that I would ask is, if Kentucky does win this game, then they go into a mindset where it's quite possible they could be 8-4, because they'd be 5-4 at that point. Got to figure then they'd beat Vanderbilt, UT Martin, and Louisville's a toss-up. But a loss to Tennessee, and 6-6, maybe 5-7, and Florida State isn't going to be coming calling for the Kentucky coach at that point. I think Kentucky is the toughest place to win in football in all of the SEC, even more so than Vanderbilt. I think that Kentucky, if they've got $1 and it could go between either football or basketball, you know where it's going. Where at Tennessee, it's going to be going to the gridiron. You know that. Vanderbilt's academic standards, I really, smart teams can win. Stanford wins. Notre Dame wins. Duke is doing well with David Cutcliffe. So what's it? It's not a disadvantage to have the smartest team on the field by any means. In fact, I'd think there would be a tremendous advantage. So the high academic standards, no, I don't think that that's a crippling blow for Vanderbilt. I think one of the reasons why they've lost over the years is a lack of facilities, as well as probably interest as well. But academic standards, I don't buy it. But yeah, at Kentucky, it's always basketball first. That means football second. And in my mind, that means that football is, it's the toughest place to win in the SEC, Kentucky. So anyway, could the Vols lose by winning? Because, like I said, that would basically keep Stoops at Kentucky. And as long as Stoops is at Kentucky, they're a formidable foe. But, if Kentucky does go 8-4 this year, maybe if Florida State does pick them off, and then the 2-10s of Kentucky probably start up again, my opinion. Now, let's talk a little bit about this game against the Blazers. To tell you the truth, I think there's a bit of a disappointment in it, and it's because Bryce Thompson was the hero, the 3 picks that the defensive back had, but this is a guy who was arrested earlier in the year. He was threatening to shoot up the school. Why? Because his girlfriend found out that, she found false eyelashes in his dorm room that were not hers. Okay, possibly Bryce Thompson is a transvestite, I guess. That's always possible, which, nothing wrong with that, of course, and would be more flattering than he is an adulterer. But I guess they're not married, but you get the point there. I know the charges were later dropped. Heck, the charges were dropped against Ray Rice. Okay, I'm not, and I think it's very disappointing that someone like Bryce Thompson was needed for Tennessee to win this game, and really, I'm with John Adams. I don't think Thompson should have been reinstated. I do not believe that if a non-football player threatened to shoot up the school and was arrested, he'd be permitted back on campus. Thompson was. Thompson, miraculously, his suspension lasted until Tennessee lost to BYU because the Cougars hit in the final minute on a 60-yard pass that ultimately would lead to the Volunteers' defeat. Isn't it funny how it worked out that way? Of course, Thompson began practicing that week, didn't play against Chattanooga, didn't need him there, but then, he's back in the lineup against Florida. Isn't it interesting? Now, you take away those 3 interceptions that Thompson had in the first half, you take away those 4 short fields, and does Tennessee go up 23-0? Probably not. In fact, I'm looking at what happens. J.T. Shrout gets the start. Why? It doesn't perform well. Jared Guarantano, with the bad wrist on his non-throwing hand, then comes in, performs like Jared Guarantano. Not a lot of yards, enough of a completion percentage, hopefully doesn't make too many mistakes. But yeah, there were 3 short fields that resulted in 3 field goals, including one of 53 yards from Brent Smaglia. And yeah, there should have been something more. Second half, and I realized that second string was in for some of the second half. I do realize that a lot of it was call off the dogs, but when Bryce Thompson wasn't intercepting passes, that second half was a 7-7 tie with UAB. Again, we see why Thompson was reinstated, not because everybody deserves a second chance, it's because the Vols desperately needed him. And that isn't saying a whole lot about depth or really, justice or anything like that. It's a little disturbing, as a matter of fact. Anyway, Kentucky comes up next. 30-7 looks good on paper, but I do wonder if it doesn't have the feel of the Chattanooga game. Again, nice victory on paper. Oh, here's Florida. Much greater opponent, lose by 31 points. Kentucky, look, 2 things I will never do. I will never pick Tennessee to beat Florida. As soon as Franks hit Cleveland, I was done with that. No, never going to pick Tennessee to beat Florida, but I'm also never going to pick Kentucky to beat Tennessee. It just hasn't happened over the years, and I don't think it'll happen now. Why? Because it's Kentucky and Tennessee. If that's the case, well then, if your expectations or your hopes were for a minor bowl game for the Tennessee Volunteers, they may just come true this year. I'm Marky Billson.